Thank you and welcome to FCA International's May safety call. This is usually our last live call before the summer starts. We'll post our monthly calls to our YouTube page throughout the summer. And then today we'll have our presentation and then open it up to any questions at the end. And with that, we welcome a special guest, Dan with AmeriSafe, a safety professional with AmeriSafe, to take us through today's presentation. So thank you very much for being with us here today.
Well, John, thank you for having me. Do you mind if we just jump in?
Please.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Again, this is our May monthly safety advisory call for mental wellness and suicide prevention. All right. For any of your questions at all, you can always contact FCA Safety Line or contact us at our FC Safety Line at finishingcontractors.org at 844-414-SAFE. That's 844-414-SAFE. Your questions are answered by a professional like myself or anyone else that's on our team, like Mike Hartnett. So please feel free to always contact us if you have anything. So moving right in for suicide prevention, mental health awareness, what we're going to talk about today is what is suicide and expanding beyond the basic definition. We're going to talk about the effects on your coworkers and why people consider doing it. We're going to move into grieving, men's mental health, and why does it have such a bad stigma from the past. We're going to look at some very alarming stats, the warning signs, and what you can do as a manager to help aid in this area. So we're going to talk about what is suicide, and we're going to talk about the grief section. We're going to start in that area first, mainly because most of us have someone in our life that has gone through this area. Whether it's a family member, a friend or a relative that's committed suicide, or you've been close to that person after the fact. So let's talk about the definition. And Merriam-Webster's got the basic definition, all right? Suicide is the act or the instance of taking one's own life, whether it's voluntarily or intentionally. The attempt of suicide is to harm yourself with the intent to end your own life, but fail. Now, Merriam's great and all, it has the definition, but it does not come close to explaining the gaping hole that you feel when someone is ripped out of your life by suicide, and the shock and anguish can seem extremely overwhelming. And these feelings don't just go away. They resurface from time and time again, forcing that survivor to relive the event all over again. And a coworker suicide often has a deep impact on people in the workplace. This event can even bring back old painful memories from someone who's just lost a friend or a family member to a suicide. And when you're forced to relive these memories, the first thing that again comes up is the initial shock again of they took their own life. Then you run through the guilt process again, wishing you had done more to prevent it, that you had been a better friend, a better relative, and that you checked in on them more often, and you will wish that you saw the signs over again. And then you have to start the grieving process all over again each time, dealing with the anger at your friend or the loved one for abandoning you. The confusion of questioning the relationship you had with them and why you weren't good enough to keep them alive. Depression due to the loss and feeling powerless that you couldn't help and there's nothing you could do to change the situation. So why does it happen? There's no single cause as to why someone commits suicide. The person may not necessarily want to die, but at that moment in time, they cannot see any other alternative. Rational thought is overwhelmed by feelings of worthlessness or helplessness, that they're stuck in a situation that they cannot find a way out of. And we've heard the saying before, you can't see the forest from the trees. When we're stressed out about a situation and we're not seeing the big picture, they're deep in that forest. Could be financial strain, especially with the impending inflation that we're currently experiencing. Marital problems, loss of a loved one, or Someone's in critical care and hospice, and they don't understand how they can't live without them. And I know we've all have heard about the suicide pacts from elderly people. Overwhelming personal and emotional challenges. They're going through something. Maybe they have a long-term illness. So moving into grieving and coping with a loss, while grieving with a loss, it's going to be difficult. And as it made difficult as it seems right now, you will come to terms with your loss. You'll be able to resolve your grief and even gain some level of acceptance in order on to move forward with your life. But during that time, you're going to struggle to focus on anything. You're going to you'll think that you're doing a good job at work, and you won't, because that's happened to me. You'll feel numb, detached and empty. There's nothing inside. You won't be able to feel the emotions of family members and loved ones around you. You will look for them in their familiar spots, favorite places they used to go, or places you'd run into them all the time. You're even going to end up talking to them at some point, imagining they're still alive. Coping with this loss as grief is extremely complicated when it comes to suicide, because it's not like a normal loss. It leads to deep depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's important that you seek help and start the healing process that will allow you to find some peace. In order to do this, as difficult as it is, you need to talk about the death of that loved one or that friend. You need to be able to talk about your feelings with someone that's supportive, coworker, a friend, family members. For me, AA really helped. And it wasn't that I was an alcoholic. It was just having the group of people that were non-judgmental that you could stand in front of and tell the story and tell how you're struggling that day and get paired up with a sponsor. That's how I made it through. You can attend the funeral service if you're able to. Again, participate in a grief counseling group through churches and other support groups. All right. You have to seek support. Supportive services can help people process their feelings about the event, and they help each other cope. And seeking that additional support, if you continue to have trouble functioning, that difficulty coping with the loss of your loved one and your coworker. Now, your coworkers may have a wide range of conflicting feelings about the death. So recognize that each person has their own feelings about it and suicide. And some people may have strong religious beliefs that impact how they feel. We have to work on being non-judgmental about how coworkers process their emotions. We have to be supportive of each other and encourage coworkers to seek counseling if they're struggling with their emotional issues. If they're having outbursts and you know the event has occurred in their life, encourage them to get support. Acknowledge the person's memory in an appropriate way. Some coworkers in the past, they want to collect money for a charitable donation or to help the family out. They create memory books. One instance I've seen, they planted a tree in the company's courtyard, remembering that person. Something we absolutely must do is avoid participating in the rumor mill, because unnatural deaths spark rumors and speculation that are going to be distracting and disrespectful. They will not help you process that grief. So as we mentioned before, grief is extremely complicated and it comes in waves. Following a suicide, the normal response to grief are intensified, and there's no way to avoid the emotional barrage that follows. But here's a couple of tips to help you cope with the pain. Allow yourself to express and feel that emotion. You have to remember their life was much more than just that moment of weakness where they committed suicide. You're going to have to expect ups and downs, because you're going to have really good days where it will not be on your mind, And then the very next minute, you're going to hear that song that reminds you of them on the radio, and you will have to pull over as you're traveling down the highway because you will be bursting into tears. You will have good days and bad, but you have to be patient. This does not change over time, right? It doesn't change right away, is what I was trying to say. I apologize. It does change over time. It gets easier, but the wound never goes away. It just ends up as a scar. You have to take care of yourself. You have to eat. You have to sleep properly. You have to have that support group that comes in and let them love you. Because if you fail to take care of yourself, you will not heal. So we're going to move into some alarming statistics. And to understand this, we understand why suicide is so prevalent in the construction industry. We need to first look at the stats throughout the United States. In the United States as a whole, over the last decade, suicide has increased over 35%. Now, women will attempt suicide, but men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide, and that accounts for over 80% of the deaths for suicide. Bureau of Labor Statistics said that in 2020, all right, there was 45,979 deaths related to suicide. If you do the math, which I am not very good at, which a friend helped me with, that's 1 for every 11 minutes. Suicide is the second leading cause for death between males of age range between 25 and 54. And John, what is the age range of most of your construction workers? It's 25 to 54.
There you go.
And this is over 14.2% of the national average, which makes construction workers 3.5 times more likely to take their own lives. For the first time ever, we've got the data breaking this number down in the trade roles. And this is a result of the Bureau of Labor Statistics study based in 2020, all right, which accounted for 5,500 suicides. It's been going up every year since then. So for every 100,000 construction workers, 45.3 will end up committing suicide. So for every iron and steel worker, for 100,000 construction workers, 79 will commit suicide. Our masonry guys, out of every 100,000, 67. Laborers, general laborers for construction industry, out of 100,000, 62 will commit suicide. Carpenters are at 54. Managers, out of every 100,000, 45 will commit suicide. Electricians are at 44. Pipe layers are 35 out of every 100,000. When you think about the millions and millions of construction workers all across America, and then further out, break that off all across the country, this number is actually very small. It's the people that we know. But to get a deeper grasp on this, we need to discuss the higher prevalence of drug and alcohol abuse and dependency among the workers in the industry. And it's a very high frequency of drug and alcohol dependency in the construction industry. The National Safety Council did a study, and the construction industry holds the second highest position for heavy binge drinking, falling short to the military. National Safety Council also discovered that approximately over 19% of workers in the industry have substance abuse disorder, which is double the national average. Even though we're using opioids as a pain management tool so we can get through the day and work those 14-hour days and sock away that money for the wintertime when we're possibly off work, this abuse increases the likelihood of that suicide attempt up to 75%. It's a very scary number. Suicide statistics in the US going through. Now, veterans make up 7% of the industry already. And veterans are already at a 1.5 times greater risk of suicide than non-veterans, which leads us to the phrase of 22 till none, because every day there's 22 veterans that take their life. As part of it's attributed to the high stress level of the job, the transient nature of the a job, always traveling. The long hours from the family wasn't necessarily the reason for the veteran suicide. It's the aftermath of coming home, to hearing your spouse telling you, we are no longer deployed. Why are you gone 16 hours and I've got 4 kids by myself? It's the home life and those conversations. Like, even though women are potential threats for suicide, since men are 4 times more likely to take their lives through suicide, we're going to focus today on men's mental health. Why is it such a taboo topic? In the past, men's mental health was seen as a hush-hush, we don't talk about it topic. While on the construction site trying to open up to somebody, you've probably heard some of these phrases in your past. You've heard, go call someone that cares. I'm your boss, not your therapist. We've heard the phrase, man up, rub some dirt on it. If you've heard any other phrases, please let me know. John, have something on here that
I've heard those ones.
Now, and was this the answer to the problem you were having that day?
No, I don't think it ever would be.
No, it wasn't. But us having this response was due mostly to the lack of knowledge and resources that are available today. Because in the past, many societies and cultures expected men to be, and other construction workers to be, the tough, strong, silent type. They expected us to hide our emotions and not feel anything. And this stigma led to men not only refusing to talk about how we really are. We said one simple word, maybe 3 or 2 at the most, depending on how the guy spoke with. Ready? It's called, I'm fine. Even though he's having dark thoughts about suicide, I'm fine. Even though my wife's cheating on me and in the middle of a divorce, I'm fine. Even though my house is doubled mortgage to the hilt and I got laid off because I hurt my back, I'm fine. That phrase that we conditioned ourselves to say led to the increased rates of depression and suicide. So how do we change it? How do we fix it? Well, the FCA.org has got some very useful techniques. All right. The constructionsuicideprevention.com has some as well. The Department of Labor just launched this new initiative about wellness in the workforce and reducing this stigma and increasing the awareness for men's mental health in the workplace. It's forcing compliance by employers to promote mental health. Moving into the risk factors and some warning signs. We want you to be in your friend's corner, because 1 out of 4 of us will fight mental health problems this year. And you could see we've got 6 people on the call today. All right. One of us is going to go through something. So be aware of the risk factors, and if that person has a history of mental illness or substance abuse, they're a higher risk factor. If they're going through serious financial problems like the inflation that we're currently going through, arrest, job loss, marital struggles. If they have a family history of suicide or mental health substance abuse. And John, I will tell you, because out of a personal note, hopefully, someone else shares, that third one applies to me, because my uncle took his own life March 7th, 2018. My birthday is March 8th. What do you think I think about every year? And this is someone that went hunting with me as a child and had a huge impact in my life. And I couldn't help but wondering every year where it went wrong. All those old feelings we talked about earlier about, What were we good enough? Why we couldn't make it through? Prior suicide attempts. If anyone's ever tried to take their own life, the risk factor is higher. According to Mental Health Magazine's exposure to suicidal behaviors from other family members, including friends, celebrities. Me personally, it wasn't the celebrity one. It was more of the friends and family members. But when Kurt Cobain took his own life, a lot of people didn't leave their own homes. And when Princess Diana died, you had a lot of people that went through serious depression, if you remember that era. It was really hard for me when my sergeant, when we came back from overseas, drove his motorcycle and it was directly into oncoming traffic of the 7-ton truck. And it's still hard. All right, so moving, talking about warning signs. Again, according to mental health behaviors listed below from the National Institute of Mental Health, if these warning signs apply to you today or someone you know, get help as soon as possible, please. Especially if the behavior is new or it's increased. If they talk about wanting to die, they're experiencing great guilt or shame, if they think that they're a burden to somebody else, please grab your phone, dial 988 and hit send. It is a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It went live as of July of 2022. All right, it's a live number now. If you take nothing else away from this, recognize the warning signs and dial that number. That one moment where you can intervene and speak with them might be the thing that they need that deters them from taking their own life. Additional warning signs: feeling empty, hopeless, that you've got no reason to live. They're extremely sad, more anxious. They're agitated or full of rage. If they think they're going through an unbearable emotional or physical pain and they see no way out. Again, there's that number again. Please take a screenshot of that number. If they have some changing behaviors and they're searching ways to die and they're researching it, they're withdrawing from friends, giving away important items, not just a yard sale, but they're giving away something that was passed down inside their family, or they're making a will. If they're taking dangerous risks, such as driving extremely fast when they didn't used to. Extreme mood swings. They're sleeping all the time when they never used to, or they're angry. Or all of a sudden they're kind of a mopey person, and all of a sudden there's, oh, I'm so happy. And they put on that fake face. We already talked about sleeping less, if they're eating way more. The abuse of drugs and alcohol. Now, some of the warning signs, if you type warning signs in the internet, you're going to see if they drink alcohol. It might just be that John enjoys a beer at the end of a hard day. All right, but we're talking about the steady abuse of it. Again, there is that 988 number. If you need it, please grab it and take a screenshot. So as we're talking about this, we're going, what can you do as a manager to help? I challenge you to get involved. All right, constructionsuicideprevention.com. Register your company to participate in Construction Suicide Prevention Week. It's this year, it's from September 4th through September 8th. This is why we asked John to move this call up to now, to give you guys time to register and be proactive. They have great resources to help save lives. And as a workplace manager, it's both humane and good business to create a culture of health and safety in your workplace, including investing in the mental health of your coworkers. You spend a third of your day with them at work. You spend a third of your life with them. Do you know your coworkers? If not, why not? Is it that it's so transient that you only use those employees once per job and they're gone and you'll never see them again? But if you have that crew, get to know them. During the day when you're having your morning toolbox talk with them, you could see if they've got the brown bottle flu just because the Bears lost to the Packers again. Or you could observe those critical behaviors and changes and check in with them every day. Hey, are we good? Have that morning check-in with them. Establish trust Can they trust you enough to open up and be vulnerable? If not, why? Again, is it you just had those temporary employees where you had that crew one time? Or have we said some of those things in the past that closed that door? As you get to know your coworkers, you'll be able to identify who's at high risk, and you'll be able to look for warning signs of immediate risk for suicide. As a manager, you need to be prepared. Know who to contact in your company if your employee is showing distress or some of the warning signs. Contact your HR department. If you don't have an HR department, contact your employee assistance program. Your district councils have these resources. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, again, 988 is that number. Be prepared to know who to contact if you see those signs. And we're going to encourage you to take action right away. If the danger for self-harm is imminent, call 911. Stay with that person, make sure or take them to a private, secure place with another caring person. And the key part of that phrase is caring person, because we all have those grizzled veterans on the job that, don't set them with them, all right? And set them with somebody until you can get further help. I see you laughing, John, because you know it's true. And contact your emergency, your employee assistance program or the HR department, and let them decide what to do. Provide any and all additional background information that will be helpful. If you don't have that, contact the Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, 8255. All right, National Lifeline. Maintain contact with that employee in the or HR department to provide the appropriate support and follow up as needed. And again, if all of that fails, dial 988. If you have any questions, please contact the FCA helpline. Contact us. We'll do our best to help.